Then in your Bolivar classroom, what are the three biggest expectations you convey to the kids in a Bolivar setting?
Okay, that's good. So I might say more than three. So if from a housekeeping standpoint, you got to be seated the entire time we're there, unless like
Okay.
we're doing something where you have to stand, so don't run around. And that's more for the little kids, right? When I was teaching second grade, no phones after a certain point. So and I'll say this, I would because it was usually like it's on Sundays. I always taught on Sundays. Football season's on in the first half of the year, so I would be like, okay, we finished the opening prayers and all that. Check your phones, check your scores, and then put your phones away. No phones out, right? And then the second one is obviously like don't have side conversations, right? Which actually wasn't a huge problem for me. And if someone is having a side conversation, I ask them what they're talking about and I say you got to say it out loud. And for some reason they sometimes choose to actually say what they're talking about, which is funny and embarrassing. On the other side of things, it's ask as many questions as you need to that's about the topic. Don't be scared to ask questions. We're here, we're learning together. Um, be respectful. You can ask a question if you're not sure about something in terms of religion, because one of the things I asked, sorry, this is a bit long-winded, but one of the things I asked, I remember seventh grade, first day, anyone here that who's here because their parents are making them come who doesn't identify themselves as a Hindu? It's a question I asked, and two students raised their hand at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, when I asked that question, those hands were not up. I was very happy about that. But I told those students, I was like, listen, I get it. One is be respectful of the space because I know you technically don't want to be here. But the second thing is ask me questions, but be respectful, right? Don't
Right.
just ask this. That's it. Respect and ask questions. That's for me. What about you? I heard you.
Two big rules. The first one, like you said, is respect. Where we want these kids to be open and share. And if they feel like another kid laughs at their response or their viewpoint on something, they're not going to be willing to share. And it's not just like abject disrespect where they laugh and point. I'm not talking about that. It's the eye rolling and the people dismissing them, where you look at someone when they're speaking, and if it's someone that you don't really consider to be knowledgeable or you don't take their opinion as valid, you look away or you start writing or something like that. It's those micro kind of moves that people make that really show if they're dismissing someone or actually listening to them. So disrespecting a teacher and not listening, I mean, that's par for the course. As a teacher, we got to be prepared for that. But having kids disrespect each other, that's something that's not acceptable in the classroom. And from a young age, we really got to instill that in them that you will respect each other. The other thing is really passing the ball, and this is especially for the eighth grade and above. One rule was everyone has to speak and share. Because one
Mm,
thing we do, this is about culture again in the classroom, where we have this tendency as teachers to really pander to the superstars. Because no matter
mm.
how boring we are in the class, there are those two or three superstars who, when it comes to being on stage, for example, they can sing the bhajan, they can talk about what we do in class, they can
They
do
make your job
every
easier. They make your job
they
easier
make
as teachers.
yeah. And in
Yeah.
the classroom, they'll be attentive and answer questions. Chances are their parents taught them this topic much before even they entered Balvihar. So
Yeah.
all of that's there. But if we make lesson plans and we judge the culture of the environment in the class as successful based on how these kids respond, just those superstars, it's not enough. We got to pass that ball around, or else other kids get checked out. And it's only two or three kids answering all our questions, and we think that's great. That's not the culture we want to set. Our Balvihar culture should be one where we get everyone to jump in. And if that means some kids have weaker answers, not because they're not smart, but because they're not listening,
Yeah.
then so be it. We have to bring them up. But at the same time, we cannot just pander to our superstars. That's something we often do. That's got to change.
I love that. And I'll say that in my classes, at least in my seventh and eighth grade classes, every student knew it was fair game. I was going to call on you.
Yeah.
So if you're not paying attention, I'll never forget this. I had one kid who was just talking, like just talking. I was like, all right, you know what? From next class, every opening prayer, you're leading it. And he was, and like that class, I made him do closing prayers. And he was so, in the beginning, he actually didn't know all of them. And he was like nervous and like he needed help. But by the end of it, like he was one of the most attentive kids because they all figured out you're getting called on. If you're gonna hide in the corner, I'm not gonna let you stay in the corner, right? So yeah, I 100% agree with that. And then when it comes to the respect thing that you said, I think it's our jobs as teachers to, in a way, defend those kids that say something that might not be the right answer or something that kids snicker about or roll their eyes about. Where if something like that happens, it's your job as a teacher to be like, no, no, wait. let's hear what this person's saying, even if they're wrong. Let's say they're fully wrong. My job as a teacher is to address what they said and then walk them through the right path, but not allow the kids to laugh at them because it's wrong.
Right.
Right.
And I tell the kids a story often. This was in the youth empowerment program. I was part of the first batch. And near the end of the program, we have a capstone project that we work on. Some kind of a project that really uses the skill sets and what we've learned coming together as a batch. So we have this session in the afternoon one day, and it's about 31 of us in the batch.
Mm.
And we're all throwing around ideas for about an hour about what we can do, and nothing is sticking. Just people are checked out. The frustration of not having a good cohesive idea is people aren't happy. And so at a certain point, people were sharing in uh, the suggestions were just devolving at one point, like not
Sure.
even
As they
intelligent
do.
things that we're
As they
doing,
do.
as
Yeah.
they do, like creativity. I guess we were just emptying the tank. And then one kid raises his hand, and he was someone who was kind of different. He wasn't always on base when he spoke. He was kind of off the rails at times, a bit immature at certain times. So we dismissed him immediately when he put his hand up, me included. He has his hands up to speak, and we already start walking out of the room, literally start walking out of the room as he's trying to speak. And then one of the other people says, "Hey, he's speaking. You need to listen." One of our
Mm.
admins. So then we stop and we sit down. And the kid says, "Guys, I just realized something. There's 31 of us in our batch, and there's 31 shlokas in Bhajagovindam." And we were like, "Well, okay, go on." And he says, "How about we write a book or something where we each write something about that shloka and tell a story or something, and we can make a book with questions." That became our capstone product, which was Yuva Govindam from the batch one of the EP course, and that's still used by some Balvihar classes in teaching this text.
I
So
this is
after that experience, do not dismiss anyone. I don't care if you don't agree with them or you think they're weird or whatever it is. We do not dismiss anyone. Like that taught me so much, that one instance.
that's so I don't know why I got a little bit of goosebumps because I feel like it you're right. I've actually heard that being used in Balvihar teachings, and I'm just like, if you guys had dismissed that, that body of work would not exist. And it's just that's kind of wild. Wow. That's yeah. So yeah, no one should be dismissed. I love that.
It's amazing. But then one challenge comes up here. How do we try to include everyone in the class in creating that culture? If you've got a class of, in our Frisco Center, for example, we routinely have classes of more than 25 kids. You want to include every kid in the conversation or have their say. The way to do that is not to have each kid go on a monologue about stuff, but even those shorter answers and what they want to say, really spreading that wealth and having everyone share. Because when we get everyone to share, everyone's invested at that point, that really does matter. Really does matter.
Is it 25 plus even for the older grades, like past eighth grade?
Not many of the older grades, but for like the swell you see, like third, fourth, fifth, sixth, you'll
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
big
yeah.
bulge there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they're also like, I don't know if this is if this is like super possible, but like I've seen for for some teachers they have like a list of the kids' names, and they like keep
Yep.
track of who's been answering. So it's like, oh, like this person hasn't spoken in like a day or like in a couple weeks. Let's get them involved. That's one way of going about it. But I think I think it's goes back to what you said about not pandering to the superstars, because if you,
Yes.
as soon as you stop pandering to the superstars, other people have to step up. And the funny thing is, if you don't pander to the superstars of week one, two, and three, by week three, four, five, and six, you're gonna have new superstars, and then you stop pandering to those superstars, and then you're gonna create new ones, and then at the end of the year, everyone is a superstar in one way, shape, or form.
Make everyone a superstar. I like that. I like
I like
that.
that.